Can't hear you.
Move up. I'm afraid I'm going to swallow this. Thank you. I'm Sandra Worth. I'm chair of the Planning Commission. And we have the agenda. You should pick up your copies of the agenda in the back. Roll call shows everyone present. We have one that has just left the commission. He moved out of the township, so we will be filling that pretty soon, next month in January. We have minutes in our packet. Are there any questions on those?
This spelling. Third page, agenda 5. Under B, all else, J-O. Should be J-O.
Oh, Jonas. And how is it spelled?
J-O-N-N-A.
Oh. Say apostrophe S. All right. So we have this one correction. Is there a motion to accept these as corrected?
Move it. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. We have the December 10th, which is today, the Planning Commission meeting agenda. We need an approval for that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Scott, do we have a consent agenda? I don't see what is on.
There's no, sorry, no, there was no consent.
There is no consent agenda. The first item of business then is a public hearing. Special approval, 1912-01 AT&T Mobilities, and location is 6515 Highland Road. Now, it will be presented, and then if there's any people that would like to speak for or against, please come up to the podium with your name and your address, and then do your presentation. We aren't going to probably at that point interact with, this will be for AT&T. We'll take all of your concerns and then we'll talk about it. Okay, at the end.
Thank you very much. So this is a special approval case. It is for a new wireless communication facility on Highland Road. This is between the airport and North Hospital Road on the south side, directly across from the airport. The property is, or the project is for a 100-foot monopole wireless tower. Should have some attachments that bring it slightly higher than that. But the property is zoned O2 General Office. There's an existing office building on the site right now, 2-story, and immediately in front of the proposed location, there's another one on the side of the property. The general zoning pattern in the area has been for the HC2 high-tech industrial. There is a self-storage facility behind the property, a mechanic shop to the east. You have the other office just to the north. And far to the west, but not immediately adjacent, you have a single-family neighborhood. The existing property has been approved in 1975. This is just an addition to it, the very southeast corner, right over here, for those who can see. The master plan is designated regional commerce. This is principally properties set up to support the local commerce, things that support activity with the airport. It's less relevant for this purpose, given that this is a public utility that's coming in, but it's just good to know in general. The applicant has provided a couple maps to show the reason and location, the reason that this location was chosen and why the tower height is what it is. These are the sites within 2 miles of the proposed location based on what they had described from their engineer there's no other suitable location other than coming right here to fill in this gap in coverage. So with the new tower, this is what they would anticipate their coverage area to be. In terms of the site plan, you see that here is the existing office building. They are proposing to put it in an enclosed area to the southeast corner. It'll be the tower and all the accessory equipment that goes with it on the ground level. Access is through a shared drive from the self-storage facility to the rear and in through the parking lot. This is just more of a blow up of that specific area. Here is an example of what the tower would look like. In terms of the submittal, the application packet was fairly comprehensive on what they had submitted. They addressed most issues adequately. There was a few items of concern, specifically on the south side. There was a variance required with one of the cabinets. We require a 10-foot setback to property lines. They are at roughly 4 feet. There's a dimensioning issue that I think we can resolve, but it's something there. The bigger concern was some of the approvals that they require from the different aeronautic agencies, from the FAA and the Michigan Aeronautics Commission. These are the only things that have not been quite resolved, and I think we need to have a little more discussion before it goes too much further. The last item is an issue with the township's fees for review. The township requires a fee for special use and a fee for site plan. They have asked for a reduction in those fees based on a state law. There is some discussion whether that is appropriate or not, and we just need to have that resolved at some point before this is a finalized process. So if there's any other questions, feel free to ask them.
Do you have any questions from the commissioners at this point? Okay, I would like to open then the public hearing. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to come down and talk about this, or have questions, please come down to the podium.
Good evening, everybody. Wally Haley here tonight on behalf of AT&T, the applicant. Some a little bit more background of what's been going on behind the scenes. Obviously, the folks from the airport are here to have their say and discuss their position. They feel that the tower is too close to the airport. I met with Ms. Miller, Ms. Bush, I'm sorry. Last week, we talked about the situation. I then went back to AT&T and asked them if they would voluntarily light the tower and if there was a way that we could lower the height at least some distance. And it took a little bit of time, but I actually got the agreement that they would voluntarily light the tower and that they would also lower the height to a maximum of 90 feet. Whether it's antennas or tower or whatever, it would not exceed 90 feet, period. I'll let Ms. Bush speak to that. I don't think that's going to be satisfying at the airport, but a lot of other points relative to that. One is that the FAA has come back and said that this is not a hazard to navigation. I think they'll argue differently. However, there's a lot of other questions that, from a safety point of view, there are large trees in this area. There's a 70-foot tree, and these are estimates. We did it for my office with a rangefinder and some very simplistic methods. But within 20 yards or 25 yards of this proposed tower location is at least a 70-foot tree. Anecdotally, my landlord will tell you that he doesn't recall helicopters coming directly over his building. And if he did, he wasn't there. And he uses his actual office in that building. So he looks right out at the Oakland County Airport. The one other outstanding issue that Scott discussed too was the Michigan Aeronautics Commission's report, which we have not received back yet. It's been applied for, but we have not received that back. So we do not have that as this point of view. And as to the variance required for the cabinet, we can move those cabinets anywhere within that compound, so we wouldn't need that variance. So I would be more than happy to work with Scott to make sure that we have that base covered. With that said, I'll sit down and answer any questions and stuff that the folks have. You know, Scott's report was very detailed, so if you have questions directly from me, I will be more than happy to answer.
Good afternoon, my name is Bill Christensen. I'm the senior pilot and deputy with the Sheriff's Office Aviation Unit. Without getting into any kind of parliamentary arguments here, the gentleman did testify that the office owner building, I guess, never remembers a helicopter flying over his office. I find that incredible.
He was very busy. He was very busy working.
Okay. I can only concentrate on two kind of very narrow topics. One, a hazard to aviation and navigation as it relates to helicopters. I can't speak to what the fixed wing guys and girls out there feel about it, but I can tell you that the helicopter community would object to it in the strongest of senses. That particular spot poses an issue for us. We have an agreement with the control tower. It's without getting into a bunch of aviation mumbo jumbo. It's called special VFR. So when the weather is exceptionally crappy, like it is today, and it often is in Michigan, we're required to do a couple different reporting points depending on which way we come in to the airport. And that's usually somewhere between the 400 and 500 foot AGL above ground level areas. And the final reporting point on the south side of the airport is Lock Haven and Elizabeth Lake Road. And I have the agreement here if you folks would like to see it. It's probably going to be a little Greek to you. It's just a method of controlling the flow of the aircraft, particularly our helicopters and other helicopters into the airport when actually fixed-wing aircraft aren't actually even flying because the weather minimums are such as they are. I understand that 90 feet does not seem like a big, tall structure until it's right in front of you in an aircraft. I would submit to the board that anything in the surface area around the airport that's any taller than a control tower is going to be a hazard for us. And I would object to those also. My partners and I, Deputy Heckman's got 20 plus years on the Sheriff's Office and equally as many hours or years in aviation, and behind him is Dave Halliday, who's a retired trooper. He finally came to his senses and joined the Sheriff's Office. He's been flying helicopters for a long time. All right, good. We're all on the same page in music, and I fully understand the need for a company to expand their business and prevent things from happening and improve stuff, but not at my expense.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak for? Okay.
Good afternoon, I'm Cheryl Bush, Manager of Aviation for Oakland County Airports, and my office is right at next to the control tower here in Waterford. As Deputy Christensen mentioned, my office is right in target of this same tower approach, and helicopter traffic is overhead all day long. I think last Wednesday we counted 5 helicopters approach directly overhead in about a 3-hour period, right as I ended my conversation with Mr. Haley, so it was ironic. But we agree that the traffic there is heavy, depending on weather, depending on a lot of factors, but it is a regularly used route overhead. We appreciate the opportunity to sit down with AT&T ahead of time and appreciate their efforts to try to mitigate the circumstances. Of course, anything lit would be an advantage in this situation, and the ability to lower it is appreciated, but it's still a #1 safety concern for us, and no tower at any height would be our desired preference. Just for #1 safety concerns. I think you've read in the packet several of the arguments of the other helicopter operators, of our engineering consultants, and they're addressing the pattern for our cross runway 1836, which really services most of the private pilots in the area, and this is in a flight pattern for those pilots as well. One of the more technical aspects of the FAA's approvals, you'll see a determination of no hazard on this particular application. And unfortunately, that's somewhat misleading because that takes into consideration just one point of criteria. That particular application looks at what they call a Part 77 surface, which is just imagine a horizontal imaginary line over the airport. And that 100-foot height of the tower does not exceed that imaginary line, which is why that there is a determination of no hazard. But there are a multitude of other factors that come into play here that are not considered in that determination, and that would be situations like the helicopter approaches and takeoffs and the 1836 corridor as well. So we're happy to answer any questions and get more into the technical aspect of that if you have any further questions on it. But I think our position stands very much in alignment with our operators, including not only the Sheriff's Department, but other medical helicopters and other flight training. We have quite a bit of flight training helicopter activity at the airport as well. And when you take training into consideration and you take poor weather conditions and the environment with the amount of activity at Oakland County International, these factors all combine to concerns for a 100-foot tower right across the street from a very heavily trafficked airport. So be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak for or against this project?
Hi, my name is David Halliday. I'm a retired state police officer now, deputy at Oakland County Sheriff's Department. A lot of people are not aware that airspace is very defined. We talked about the one person who mentioned that he didn't recall helicopter operations recently. Just last week we had to do what's referred to as factory currency on our particular type helicopter. Myself, I did 20 takeoffs and landings over that particular airspace that you're talking about. Airspace is very defined. If you were to take the airport, you would take a rectangular box and put it over the top of the airport. That would be the defined airspace. Within that, paralleling the runways is what's referred to as your downwind and your upwind. So it doesn't matter which way the wind is coming from. At some point during your flight operation, you'll be flying over that. So I think it's real important for you to know that that's a busy highway. On top of that, for flight operations, for chasing bad guys, M59 is one of our busiest corridors, obviously, for people that we're chasing. And when we're chasing people in a helicopter, our flight operations are at lower altitude than if we're just on normal patrol. Please take that into account. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak for or against this project? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing.
I think this is something that we should leave this open for a moment. Ignore me, please.
Well, Gary, did you have something to say,
Well,
please?
yeah, I can address the commission. Gary Dover, Township Attorney. I spoke with Scott earlier today, having noted his recommendation in his staff report that this matter be postponed. And I wanted to make sure that if that was done, that it could still be back before you for a final decision within a 90-day time period that is allowed under the Michigan Zoning Act for action on a request like this. I understand that the meeting schedule you approved back on October 22 has a meeting on January 28, and that would fall within the 90 days from the November 7 application in this case. So if you wanted to follow staff's recommendation, it wouldn't run afoul of what's called a shot clock. So that's the first observation. Second observation, what you've heard from the airport and sheriff's department are items related to public safety and welfare. And that is a permitted standard. It's actually a requirement under the ordinance. There are also requirements for not only FAA, but Michigan Aeronautics Commission approvals. I don't think you have the MAC approval at this point, is that correct, Scott? You have the FAA approval, but then you've also seen documents in your packet that there may be more to that. And finally, the ordinance says that when it comes time for a building permit, FAA and Michigan Aeronautics Commission requirements are to be noted. It would seem to me that from my review, there's something more that is expected from the FAA, or you have materials in the folder, and you certainly need something from the MAC. What they require, if they approve, would seem to bear directly on the issues presented to you of public safety and welfare. So I think there's grounds to postpone a decision. As Scott's noted in his report, the alternative is to, if you're inclined to do an approval, then try to structure conditions on that. But based on the narrow issue that's been presented, I would think it would be better to wait and see everything that's come in from the folks that govern the skies before you try to wrestle with that and guess what they might do or say and how it might bear on your decision. So I guess I would favor the recommendation of postponement to the date certain of January 28th at the Commission's next meeting, and in the motion to actually continue the public hearing that's been begun today so that additional public comment can be provided at that time without having to do new notices. If you have questions, I'll try to explain it better, but
I will undo my public hearing, so we can continue that on January 28th if we decide.
So my motion could be to postpone this case to the Commission's January 28, 2020, I'll say that, meeting, and adjourn and continue the public hearing until that date.
Motion to postpone this decision, this issue until January 28th, 2020 meeting of the Planning Commission, allowing for continuation of public hearing at that point.
Is there a second for that?
I'll second.
All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carried. You've got to get all your ducks in a row too. You have to get your ducks in a row also.
I wanted to thank the Sheriff's Department and the airport people for coming out today. They really enlightened my mind as to what's going on. Thank you.
Yes, that was wonderful. A little bit of time spent on their parts, so. Next item on the agenda was on for special approval. It has been moved to just a discussion item. This is the special approval on 19-12-02, the Roush Enterprise. Would you like to review that?
Yes, thank you. This has been downgraded, as you mentioned, to a discussion item. This is a discussion and determination by the Planning Commission whether the project proposed by Roush Industries is an unclassified use and how that should proceed before the Planning Commission in the future. What they are proposing to do is a new vehicle testing facility. Essentially, it is on the road testing. They will bring in a series of new vehicles, as I understand it, concept cars, new cars, anything like that, where it has not been released to the public yet. They will do on-the-road testing. Essentially, they will take out the fleet in 8-hour increments and essentially drive it around, come back, see what works, what does not. The issue we have is that this is proposed in a C4 district. From my evaluation on this, it does not appear to be a use that is considered by the zoning ordinance itself. There's no specific zoning district that it fits in properly. One of the conditions on this is the outdoor storage of the project. It would be enclosed. This would affect full traffic. These types of uses aren't necessarily inconsistent with what's going on in the area. There's a dealership that is very similar in concept to. You have essentially a fleet of vehicles, automotive repair, that would be very similar. It's similar in concept to a commercial service establishment. In terms of the Summit Place Mall site across the street, we have the new Summit Place Overlay District, which drastically enhances the types of uses that can be there, so it's not out of character for what may end up there in the next few months or years. The master plan describes this as a planned destination. This is really something that was established when the mall was in operation. This is a place where people would come to en masse, do their shopping and leave. This is not really what we're anticipating is going to be occurring there. This is more of either an industrial or centralized business type operation where it doesn't have the same flow of traffic that you would have seen during the height of the mall's operation. In terms of the surrounding areas, this is principally surrounded by C3 and C4 districts. On the west side of the property, you have a residential neighborhood. I don't anticipate their operations would impact that as much, given that all of their focus and outside activity is on the forward section of the property. All the storage, all the deliveries, everything that happens on the Summit Drive portion of this. This is kind of an overview of what they had proposed, taking over the entire northern section of the existing mall, enclosing the parking in front of this with some access gates they could restrict access. They had talked about fully screened fencing so that no one could see in or out. They would also be taking over a portion of the property across the street. This is where Longhammer has some of their current car storage going on right now. So it's not out of character with what's already been being done there, but it doesn't quite fit exactly. So what we were hoping to have is a motion that it does fall under the unclassified uses ordinance, and that it is an appropriate fit for this location, so that we could move forward with a special use application with the condition that the township board would be the body. Is there any questions on this? Yes, sir.
Back of the old Farmer Jack's building, will they be loading anything, any material going in and out of that building?
I have not heard, when my discussions with them have not indicated as such. They may use this as a supplemental entrance, just as it had always been used, but the discussions I had, they had indicated vehicle deliveries would come in through the front. They may have some automotive repair equipment coming in through the back end, extra parts, oil, that type of thing, but it hadn't been discussed. This was not a final site plan, this was more of a concept. This is what we want to do, does it work? And that's something that if you do decide to move forward on this, we could have that conversation as part of the site plan review.
We'll have it another time.
Yes.
So will this be on the agenda for January?
I'm hoping so.
May I?
Sears DTE property. In that case, you determined, because you had a whole lot more before you, you had, all the concept plans and site plans, from DTE. You were actually able to determine in that case that what they were proposing was a permitted use in the C4 district. Here, staff's review, and I concur with it, is different. Staff has determined that this use, because of its features, mainly that the parking and the storage is going to be in the front rather than the rear of the building. They've noted some other differences, and I noted that this use is going to involve fairly high volumes of traffic a couple times a day going in and out. So it's a little bit different than what you see listed for the C4 uses. In this case, I think staff's recommending that you determine that it's not expressly authorized, contemplated, specified in the ordinance, and it has those features that also aren't authorized, specified, contemplated. And what this ordinance section does is if you make that determination, it still allows Roush to proceed with the special use application process. The difference is that the final decision maker under that process will be the township board, and your role falls back to being a recommendation. Now, I've scratched out a language for a possible motion if you wanted to follow staff's recommendation, and I recommend you use that, as it indicates that the special use application could be submitted and then it would go through these other sections. And that would allow when it comes back on January 28th, first of all, it would allow an actual proper site plan to be put together. And when it comes back to you in January, you would be doing the same things you would do with a special use application, but you're making a recommendation. And there's one other thing in the ordinance that you also need to recommend is what district does this use belong in? We know the property is zoned C4, and maybe it belongs in C4 with appropriate conditions and so forth. But that's a decision that would be made if you got this motion and they get things put together in time to be on the January agenda. And after you looked at it in January and made a recommendation, then it would go to the township board. So in January, you would be saying, yeah, it's okay in the C4, or no, we think it belongs somewhere else. That wouldn't be binding on the township. And you would also say, we think that it's okay here, but we need to have these conditions put on it. So that's kind of what the future would look like if you adopt the motion that I'm recommending. Answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Gary. Since this is only under discussion, we need a motion.
You would need a motion.
We need a
Yep,
motion.
I
To
did.
remove it from special approval to discussion.
It had already been postponed from the special approvals, so we are simply under the discussion item below.
Special approval case 19-1202. I make a motion under section 3-202.1 of the ordinance to determine that the proposed use is not expressly authorized, contemplated or specified by the ordinance and involves features not expressly authorized, contemplated or specified in the zoning ordinance as determined by the zoning official. Based on this determination, the applicant may proceed with a special use application as provided in subsections 2 through 6 of section 3-202.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, please raise your hand. Can you set that up? Can't reach it.
The good news is, I can topple if you want. Okay, my name is Patricia Hussey. I'm with Redwood, 7510 Pleasant Valley Road in Phoenix, Ohio. And my engineer is Dean Graham with Bergman. And we're here this evening just for discussion on what we would like to do to turn the neighborhood to Waterford Township. So, I will tell you just a little bit about my history. I've been working with Redwood for over 12 years. We have 91 neighborhoods in 6 states. We are into probably 3 more states now. And I've been introducing and building probably 30 of those. And I will tell you that I am extremely proud of everything that we built, we plan to build well. And I'll go through this PowerPoint here, but I'm going to take a few moments at a time and tell you about what we've done.
Could she pull the mic closer to her?
Yeah, we can't hear her.
Very close.
Since 1991. And up until probably 7
I don't think it's on.
is when we started really growing our company. And now we're up to over 10,000 units in 6 states, going into 8 states. And we have many neighborhoods in Michigan.
Is that microphone not working?
No.
Okay,
Is the green light on?
lights on.
Well, it real close.
Really close.
Grab the other one. Grab the other one.
Okay. Is that better? Oh, I
Yes.
can really hear myself now. Anyway, Redwood has been building neighborhoods since 1991. And in the last probably 6 to 7 years is when we really started growing. We now have over 10,000 apartment homes in 6 states, going on 8 states. And we have numerous, when we get into what I'm going to show you here shortly, we have numerous in Michigan, and we want to continue to grow in Michigan. I personally have been with Redwood for 10 to 12 years and growing with them. And I will tell you that I am really proud of what we do. Not everyone wants to own a home anymore, or they want to downsize and sell their home, but yet live into a home that they like. And that's what we do. We do one thing really well, really well. We build, all of our homes are 1 story, 2-car garages, 2 bedroom, 2 bath. That's all we do. That's all we do. And we do it very well. So I guess at that point, what we're proposing here is to have 101 units, which I'll get to in a moment. But I guess at this point, if you'll allow me, how do I move those? Oh, okay, yeah. Let me put my glasses on because I can't see so well. Okay, so yeah, we can move on. Okay, yes, about us, who we are. 1991 is when Steve Kimmelman started building our neighborhoods, and now it's 2019, and so we're growing. And again, one thing that we do really, really well is we do one 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage. That's all we do. And I will tell you this, back in the day when I was with Redwood, and allow me to, I hope I don't bore you, but we had, it was a typical apartment, nice countertops, nice bathrooms, and what we've done now is we've elevated ourselves that all of our apartment homes now have granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, slate flooring, beautiful places. And again, we do one thing really well. But what I really enjoy about working with Redwood, that I've been here for so many years, is, we have fun. You gotta have fun, right? To love it, you gotta have fun. And that's what we do. Okay. Our mission statement is, thank you, that we reinventing the apartment home by creating Redwood neighborhoods throughout suburban America. And our goal is, even though Steve Kimmelman says we can't go to Hawaii, but whatever, and we probably won't do Alaska, we want to be in 48 states when we're done. And this is where we are right now. As you can see on the screen, we have 20 in Michigan, 52 in Ohio, which probably of those 52 in Ohio, I will be very proud to say, I think I said before that, but I did 30 of those. We're just going into Illinois, Iowa, Kentucky, South Carolina, and North Carolina. And I just was out in Omaha, Nebraska about a month ago, and we'll probably be going out there as well. So who's our customer? Our customer is primarily empty nesters, professionals, young professionals, and people who want to live maintenance-free living. Like, they don't want to cut their yard anymore. They want to live in a neighborhood that they're safe and feel comfortable in, and that's what we provide. And that's what Redwood does. And by the way, we are very, I don't know about you guys, but I'm into cats. Other people are into dogs, but we accept both. Okay. Again, our residents deserve single-story apartment neighborhoods, 2-car attached garage, personal patios or decks, stone and shake siding, and extensive landscaping. I will tell you that we are very proud of how we have our neighborhoods. We have extensive landscaping around all of our units, and as you drive into our neighborhoods, very extensive landscaping. Redwood owns our neighbors. We own the neighborhoods, we do all the landscaping, we maintain everything. So it's one ownership, no one else doesn't. So we own it, and we have a level. If you went into one of our neighborhoods from like 1991 to today, they would still, the exterior elevations may look a little different, but they're all beautifully clean, beautiful neighborhoods, and we pride ourselves on that. And the majority of our rents go, and I'll probably talk about that in a few moments, but depending on where we are, normally they're like $1,500 to $2,200 a month. And to be able to get that lease rate, we have to have a very high level of cleanliness, safetyness, and keeping our neighborhoods Redwood, because that's where we are. Everyone is Redwood now. Okay. Interior shots. As you can see, and again, you have the booklet in front of you. All slate flooring, stainless steel countertop, or stainless steel appliances. We have, again, there's 2 bedrooms. The one is a master bedroom, which has its own bath, and then the other bathroom is off the hall that allows for the second bedroom. And I will tell you that we work very hard to have beautiful interiors and, yes, open floor plans, granite countertops, private entryways, and we're Energy Star certified. And again, our units are 1,300 plus. We have some units that have sunrooms, and those actually are about 1,650 square feet. And this is just an example of our floor plans. And again, they go from 1,200 to 1,620. And in this particular plan that we can discuss tonight or when we come back, we will have a variety of all of these floor plans. And again, the other thing we do have is vaulted ceilings. And I'll tell you, one thing about our kitchen area is we have a walk-in pantry that is almost as large as people's bathrooms. I mean, it's beautiful. Okay, and then exterior. We have, when engineering allows us, we have retention basins, and we put those with fountains, and we have the upgraded features, and we look for prime locations. And I will just say this, we want to be in Waterford. And I'm proud of what we've done in Michigan, in Ohio, in Indiana, and North and South Carolina, and as we grow. And we just want to come before you this evening to introduce us to you and to answer any questions and talk about going forward with the approval process. And that's all I've got to say.
Does anyone from the commission have any questions?
What is the last slide, what was the room on the 1,600 square foot unit? Looked like a third living area space. On a summer way. Great.
Oh, yeah, that would be the sunroom.
Sunroom.
Yes.
There is brick on all of the exteriors. There's brick in the photographs. I think I've been in one of the communities over by Walway Central High School. And, I didn't see the brick there at all. There, in your photographs, you have brick skirting around the outside of the units. That's
There's
standard.
a slide out that shows where our communities are. Yeah, right here. Yeah. Yes, it depends on the municipalities. Some request stone, some request brick. We always do the stone, but we can do brick if that's what you prefer.
Well, I just want something other than just frame.
Yeah, granted. Like when we go through the process with you, if you you'll tell me based off your code, and then what you would like, we will accommodate that. 100%.
And your target is empty nesters and young professionals. Do you experience many children?
Actually, we do not discriminate. Let me just say that very clearly. However, because it's empty nesters and seniors and young professionals, very few children. In fact, we have more cats and dogs. Seriously, I mean, it's 2 bedrooms, so it's not like a single family home where you want to have like a full family. So again, we don't discriminate, but we target that market, and we have very few children.
I didn't catch the price per month on that. Can you tell me the price of the 1,294 and the 1,620 square foot?
The range of leasing, the dollar amount?
Yeah.
Yeah, in here, we're probably looking at $1,400 to $1,800 a month.
1,800.
Mhm.
What's the difference? They look like condos. They're calling them apartments. I'm baffled about that.
I know. You know what? I am baffled as well.
Well, you work there. I don't, so I'm asking you for.
Yeah, I'm just saying that
Why
if you,
they
if you,
want that.
if you drove into one of our neighborhoods, you would think that they were condos, but they're
Yeah.
not. And the people that, like, again, you talked about, empty nesters and, who lives in our neighborhoods, is we build them to look like condos, but they're not. But they're all maintenance free. So if you lived in one of my
Sort of
neighborhoods,
condos if you got an association.
we have no association, we're the one owner. So there is no HOA.
Yeah, I understand you're the owner of the place. Okay. But I really didn't get an answer what the difference is. It still looks like a condo to me. That's fine.
In a condo, people own their own unit, and in our neighborhoods, you don't own them, you lease
Call
them.
condos for rent. Instead of apartments.
There's a form of ownership. There's no
This is
association.
like renting an
No.
apartment, I get that. I get that. And you said that you'll build it to my liking, so basically if I want the 1,620 square foot one, I come to your office and say, this is what I want stone on it.
No. What happens is that we design them, and then we build them, and then we lease them. And then the person who's leasing them will come to us and say, we want to rent this one, or rent this one, or that one. But we don't build them per
Okay, so
unit.
you only have a few different models.
That is correct.
I
Yes,
see.
yes, that is correct.
And your lease is usually a year or something. You say empty nesters, $1,400 a month would be pretty expensive. I want to go to Florida for 6 months and leave it. I got another 6 months up here.
That is correct.
Just like if I had an apartment.
Uh-huh. They are apartments.
And how many units did you say that you want to build here in Waterford?
Here, right now, we're looking at 101.
You think there's a market for them here?
I will tell you that Redwood, since we've been doing this for so long, we do extensive market studies. And so we have done that. And we know that we have a niche here, and we want to be here because of your great township. And we know that our leasing here is like this is another thing. Let me bring this out right now. Is typically in our neighborhoods, we have like a 3-mile radius, a 5-mile radius, and a 10-mile radius. The majority of the people that move into our neighborhoods are within a 3-mile radius. So people aren't coming into Waterford, they're just leaving, they're already here. We're just giving them another new home. So, and they like it where they are, they sell their home or not.
When they're downsizing?
Or exactly right. So they're already here, they don't want to leave Waterford. So we're giving them another option, and that's what we do. And I can say that out of the 91 neighborhoods, spot on.
Would there be an issue so close to here?
I
No,
would,
an issue with your new customers?
no, and I can speak to that. We have neighborhoods that are in Ohio, on I-80, the turnpike, right there. We are in the flight zone going into Cleveland Hopkins, right there. Akron Airport, right there. Norfolk Southern, right behind us, right there.
That's fine, Dandy, are they all filled up?
Yes, 100%. So help me God.
I'm
know,
taking oath right there. I
quite
believe it.
frankly, I'm not even sure how we do that, but seriously, like the Norfolk Southern is, like, you have to have like a certain like amount of space, I guess, that you have to have. And they're like right there in the North Ridgeville, in Ohio, right there, 100% leased. And I will also tell you one more thing, is our turnover rate is 5 years,
They stay for 5 years.
at least.
What is, they stay for 5 years, where they pass it away, or are they moving to place else?
I can't
What's the
speak to
reason
that.
for
All
that?
I know is our average lease rate is 5 years, and typically it's like a year, is like the norm. and we're like 5 years.
Are your leases for 1 year or for more than 1 year? Or how is-
We have leases for 1 year, 3 years, and 5 years.
Okay, that's interesting.
No, these look very, very nice. I like it. Some of the questions I had, though, it's really throwing me off still. They look like condos, and why we're not calling them condos, but deal with that.
Well, because people own condos, Tony, they would think that they were.
Yeah,
living in-
we own all
Can't run a
those.
condo?
Not unless maybe in the condo association, they're allowed to lease it themselves, but they own it, they could lease it to you. But the condo association does not lease it.
In the history of Redwood, have you ever sold a development?
Never,
Have you ever converted any to condominiums?
never.
Does a maintenance person or manager live on site?
Yes. We have manager and a maintenance person lives on site, yes.
How many units go over there?
Yes. Mhm. Yeah, our portfolio does not, we're not gonna sell. Again, the first one that we did was in Cuyahoga Falls in 1991, and we still own it. Our portfolio is that we buy the land, we get it approved, we build them, and we own them. And that's our portfolio. And we have 91 going on. If they keep working me as hard as I am right now, we're gonna have a whole lot more in like the next 5 years. That's all I got to say. And I'm really proud of what we do. We do a beautiful job.
How many apartments are attached? Is it like 4, 2, 3, you know?
As far as buildings,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, well, we range. Typically, and correct me if I'm wrong, normally we're like 6 to 8 buildings, units per building. 4 or 6 or 8 is our typical.
Okay, I was looking at you when I was counting 4, but I wanted to make sure I was right. I was looking at the garages.
Pardon me?
I was looking at the garage.
Yeah.
And then I could count 4, and then it was a space.
Yeah, they range. I mean, we typically prefer, from an economic standpoint, to be at like 6 units per building. But we'll do 4, we'll do 8. I guess our average is, what would you say?
I would say 6 is the average.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Sounds good. How long does that take you from when the time it's approved to you have something up and running, or at least get rental of people that want to rent and have made an agreement, but it's not built yet? How long a time frame?
Typically we have once we start land development, and then like we have an open door, we have usually people waiting for like 3 to 6 months
After they sign?
to get, yeah, once we're building.
Okay.
But typically, if we have like this project here, once we build it out, it'll be 100% leased usually within 6 months to a year, with very little term. So I guess, I'm not sure, forgive me, I think we need to rezone this.
Well, yes, we do, because it's public land right now.
Yes, and I guess my question to you is, what zoning would you prefer?
If I can jump in for a minute, for the benefit of the people that don't have packets in front of them, we're actually discussing the parcel at the corner of North Williams Lake and Hatchery. Can you scroll to the end of your presentation? Very last one.
Yes, thank you, yep, thank you.
So this is the area that we're talking about, and in terms of what the zoning would be, this is something we would determine in-house as staff to let them know what it would be mandated to be, what they would have to get. I'm not sure that this would be a discussion item that they could pick and choose. It would be, this is what it absolutely has to be in order to make it work. And then if they want to go higher, they could always request to go higher, but we would give them the absolute minimum at that point.
And the township board actually approves the zoning.
Yes.
We do recommendations for this type of thing. The township board board then at their meetings will approve or determine the zoning.
What we would like, I'm not sure if this is the right time to discuss this, but I kind of brought it up, so forgive me if this was inappropriate. But we would like to maybe get 5 to 6 units per acre, which would allow us to have maybe 100 units. We can't go any more than that because it's all ranch. Like, it's all ranch. So we're never gonna come back to you and say, oh, by the way, we want 3 stories. That's not what we do. What you're seeing in front of you, and when I'm speaking to you about this evening, and what you see out here is what we do. So I guess I'm asking you, and you, so that we can move forward, so that I can come before you with Ian and myself. What type of zoning would you like that we could get this done because we want to be here?
Again, I'm going to suggest that we hold off on the specific zoning question itself. Really, the issue tonight is just to gauge whether the commission has an appetite for this type of development in this location. We can work out the details for the next available meeting for them. But it's just a matter of saying, are we comfortable with this type of development on this land? It will need a rezoning at some point. What that is, we're going to have to figure out. But we just want to know, are you comfortable with it? Is this something that the commission would be likely to support in the future, or is there just no appetite for it at this location at all? That's really what the conversation is at this point.
Can I just say one more thing? We did meet with staff, and our entrance was going to be off of
Hatchery, or Williams Lake.
Hatchery Road, yeah. And so they suggested that we go off the other road and then split the retention basin in half, and then get a really nice focal going into the neighborhood. And so we took their recommendations, and we've already made some changes based on that, just to let you know.
And I think there is a need for our older citizens that want to get into something smaller and downsize. I just heard today that there's a shortage of homes right now for sale, nationwide, not just here. But,
Yes.
But that would free up some more homes, I guess.
And we want to fill that niche.
I have one more question to our colleague, the road commissioner. With our traffic standpoint, 200 vehicles, what do you think? There would be a traffic issue with this area. I would discuss that.
The only access is from Hatchery,
Well, that's what I'm asking.
I believe there's already a right turn lane there for Williams Lake Road. Something like this. Probably one of them as well. It wouldn't be a left turn lane.